Hello, and thank you for watching this video. I spent a long time on it, but before you actually watch it, I have a few questions. First of all, I need to know what the next video after the next video should be, because I've got the next video planned. It's not TF2 related, but it is Valve related, and if you stick around to the end of the video, you'll probably hear a little bit more about it. But I'm going to put a poll down below because I have a few ideas. I'm either going to do a sniper weapon, I'm either going to do another map, or I'm going to do a video about a certain mechanic, I guess you could say. And I do want to clarify that I've been working on this video for like 3 weeks. Okay? At the time that you're watching it, I will have been working on it for like 3 weeks. Give or take. I actually edited the whole thing in one sitting, believe it or not. I wish I had streamed it because you probably could have seen a little bit more about what I did behind the scenes, but I put a lot more work into this one than I have the last two. Because the last two were done sort of on a crunch time that I really had to just get it out. And also because I didn't have any ideas for the last two. They were also done like kind of on a whim. But yeah, check below and vote for which one you want to see. I'm not saying the most popular vote is going to be the one to get made, but it'll give me a little bit more sort of idea on what people actually want to see and which videos are worth making, I guess. And also, thank you for 200. At the time that I'm speaking, I think I will have hit 200. That's all for me. Enjoy the video, and if you have any criticisms, feedback, let me know. I always want to fix something. There's been a long ongoing argument within the Team Fortress 2 community. Are random crits really fair and balanced? In many cases, general consensus is no. The pros and cons are not fairly configured, rewarding veteran players for being better than the fresh installs, oftentimes discouraging them. Or it can teach players bad habits. What's my take on all of that? Well, you'll just have to wait for that episode. For now, we're talking about something more important and more easily fixed. Bullet spread. You see, it's something probably not talked about as often. In the more loyal and dedicated experienced community, it's well known. I'm talking specifically about the 6v6 competitive 2500 hour-esque areas. Of course, you could know about it at any level, but it's not information usually afforded to you unless you're very observant. Shooting almost any wall will usually display the bullet spread right there, and as you can see by default in all Valve servers, it is random. This attribute applies mainly to shotguns and scatterguns, anything that has a pellet-style shot. This is an issue because to many players this messes with consistency. Mainly scout mains, whose primary weapon is a single-shot bullet spread and their main damage output. It's a handicap that can cripple you in your potential, but there is a weapon to fix that. Unfortunately, not for Scout. The panic attack. The panic attack may have strayed far from its initial concept, but with it being usable on 4 distinct classes, I'm sure somebody here has great potential with it. So I'm here to ask one simple question and hopefully get one simple answer. How bad could it be? Before I cover each class individually, I want to cover the history and the stats. I won't have much more of a chance to do that elegantly, as this is a multi-class weapon. The panic attack was introduced in the Smithmas 2014 update, with a far different concept than what we have today. Without covering each stat of the then times too much, it worked kind of like a beggar's bazooka, and you could hold up to 4 shells. The weapon didn't misfire like the beggars would, and you could just hold the shells as long as needed. As your health decreased, you'd fire faster, but your spread would increase with the fire rate. Well, that didn't take quite as long as I thought it would. Of course, this amalgamation of stats gave us the weapon's namesake, the panic attack, but a lot has changed since then. To my knowledge, the weapon has had 2 changes only, Jungle Inferno and March of 2018, with the latter being far less consequential. Now this weapon is a bit far from what we once had, no longer resembling the concept that gave it birth. The weapon has a much better and defined use now. 50% more pellets per shot, it deploys 50% faster, and it fires a fixed shot pattern. This is especially important to some people. But it suffers a 20% damage penalty, with successive shots becoming less accurate, meaning the spread is going to get wider with each shot. And the only stat here that even closely resembles its namesake is the deployment bonus. We'll discuss a name change later, but for now, let's establish what this weapon is good for. The panic attack increase in pellet count immediately stands out. In my research, I don't physically see a pellet increase, but there's a chance it's a problem with my game's configuration, as the wiki clearly states that they fire in a 5x3 fixed pattern at all times, but I for some reason only see a 5x2. Usually, weapons of this type fire in a 3x3, but not the panic attack. Of course, I don't need to explain why pulling it out faster is a good thing. It's fairly obvious. The faster it's in your hands, the faster you get to shooting it. The fixed shot attribute is by far the most popular aspect of this weapon. Always firing in a certain spread makes things far easier to predict. Damage numbers, how many pellets will hit, how many shots do I need to take down the enemy. Combat in TF2 has a list of variables that can drastically change how well you do, and the panic attack is setting out to help make that less of a hassle by reducing those variables by at least 1. The damage penalty sets out to balance out all of those extra pellets. Not that it helps much at close range, as even the wiki mentions that at point-blank ranges, it still manages to deal more damage than the stock shotgun. Of course, all of this is penalized by the consecutive shot downside. While the spread does stay fixed, it gets wider with every consecutive shot, and at farther ranges, that can definitely make this practically worthless. Of course, it is possible to completely negate all of this by waiting for the reload to start, or simply switch weapons. Considering all of this at a first glance, the weapon is much better at close ranges, as shotguns typically are. The spread on each shot is far less noticeable the closer you are, and having it easily accessible at any time with a faster deploy rate can usually make this weapon shine better in many theoretical situations than the stock shotgun. But if you're attempting to use it as a getaway plan and trying to back out of a situation, it may not be ideal. Let's discuss its uses on the various classes that can equip it: Heavy, Engineer, Pyro, and Soldier. While we have an established baseline for how we should use it, it's easier said than done for some of our whopping 4 classes. So, let's start with our lovable Soviet bear, as he's probably the simplest. The reason why I say that is because using it on Heavy is as simple as just don't. Seriously. I'm gonna have to be that guy here. You should be sticking with your sandwich in nearly every case. Heavy rarely needs to make use of shotguns, period, in our current game state, let alone one with a more offensive role. The Heavy has a dual role, with the first being tanking large amounts of damage to protect his teammates. He can't do this effectively without a way to heal his medic. If the medic heals everyone else, someone else needs to heal the medic. I can hear you from a mile away. What if you don't have a medic? Then you might need a shotgun for extra protection. To which I say, the sandwich is even more useful in that situation, because you can heal yourself or throw it for your teammates who also have no medic. It's very little compared to what a medic could do, but at least it's something, and something is typically better than nothing. I tried to make use of it in many ways as Heavy, but I always felt scummy without a way to help heal the medic who is in danger from afterburn or something of the like. Don't be that guy. Use the sandwich. The Engineer is the only class who uses this as a primary weapon. In this case, the shotgun is his secondary line of defense past the sentry, to deal with anything that might be able to get past his mechanical buddy. Spies, other engineers using ninja tactics, or a demo that may have taken your nest down. Your shotgun is your second line of defense, or it could be reversed in situations of a combat engineer running the gunslinger, where your shotgun can oftentimes be the biggest damage dealer, and in these cases, I think the panic attack shines. The enemies you're facing as engineer will often already be pretty damn close, and the panic attack shines in many of the scenarios that I've covered. But there are better options, I'd say like the Frontier Justice or Rescue Ranger. The panic attack isn't bad, but even in the clip that I'm showing, I would have probably been better off using the Frontier Justice or the Rescue Ranger. The sentry is going down, repeatedly, but it's getting kills pretty well too. I could be loaded with crits, or I could be saving the building from a mile away, but instead I'm stuck using the panic attack to defend myself, essentially. The panic attack isn't bad in these situations, but it's pretty damn situational, and there's almost always a better choice. Soldier and Pyro are probably a different story. These two classes can both make much better use of shotguns and secondaries, with the slot specifically opening up a world of potential in the form of banners and flare guns and boots to help with rocket jumping. Of course, this doesn't mean that shotguns are useless. Unlike Heavy, they don't have secondaries that I'd argue are mandatory in many situations. The panic attack can be viable for these classes because they chew through ammo pretty fast, and in a tight situation they can often find that they need to reload or are just completely out of ammo. If you must use a shotgun, the panic attack isn't terrible at all, but in nearly every case there's something that you might be able to make more use out of. But the panic attack's main draw is that it's a very consistent choice. But how do I know it's consistent? It's simple, I tested it. In most of these episodes, I don't do a lot of game tests, simply because I never see the benefit or the opportunity. But here, this one stat really stands out. Does having fixed spread really help enough to make up dealing with wider spreads and less potential damage? Sure, it's been tested on basic shotguns before, with and without spread, and it's more often than not a fantastic upside to be able to better predict how the pellets will spread. But in casual, you just don't have that luxury. You have to deal with the bullet spread if you want to play in TF2's arguably most popular matchmaking system, and the panic attack can help circumvent that in some ways. But enough about that, let's look at the test. Full disclosure, this test could probably be fixed in many areas. I also tried to get as close to Valve server casual matchmaking standards as possible. I'm no scientist, but this is how I conducted the test. First, I had a warm-up round on TR Walkway, practiced my aim, and I got used to moving and shooting with the bot settings. TR Walkway, as mentioned, is our testing environment. No one can interrupt me here. The bots are set to move as randomly as possible, random strafing, random jumping, random crouches, and they are not set to attack. 10 minutes with the shotgun, 10 minutes with the panic attack, just one round each. I played as engineer, if that matters. And random crits are on, bullet spread is on. Some might argue that random crits should be off to better aid the results, but since I was attempting to recreate a Valve server's environment, I kept them on. The results were as follows. On the counter for the shotgun, I had 81 kills at the end of the 10 minutes, and for the panic attack, 91. The panic attack is a clear winner here, and here's why I think that is. I felt more consistent with the panic attack. The shotgun isn't bad, don't get me wrong, it's nice, and it sets a fair baseline. Sure, the shotgun has random spread, but shotguns generally are meant to be used in close ranges anyway. The spread also seems to typically stay mostly compact at, in quotes here, intended ranges. There's a reason Scout shines in situations where he can get up close and personal. Under these circumstances, most of the pellets hit anyway, but the panic attack will deal more damage overall if you can get most of the pellets to land. The amount of damage this thing can deal at a point blank is 108 compared to the shotgun's 90, according to the Wikipedia. Sure, it has a damage penalty, but that's mainly to balance out the increased pellet count. I am having a hard time making a verdict on its usefulness here, but here's a poll I did on Reddit. Many people voted, and many people obviously hate bullet spread. There were no meaningful comments, and that's not some snide remark. There were 6 comments, and one of them was me. Bullet spread bad came out in the lead by a mere 6 votes. I'm just gonna have to make the call here. I'd probably prefer the panic attack in most of the situations where I'd use a shotgun. Granted, those situations are rare nowadays. On Engineer, he has primaries that give him revenge crits, building teleportation and healing. The panic attack can have its moments here, but they're very few and far between. Soldiers have banners and the boot secondaries. All of these can give a buff either to the team or himself. It is worth noting that the panic attack, or any shotgun for that matter, gives Soldier access to a hit scan weapon on top of his projectile-based weapon, which can automatically be a good upside for things like pyros. Pyros have flare guns, the gas passer, a fucking jetpack, the heavy. He has a sandwich. I told you this. Fuck you. Basic shotguns meant for consistent usage just aren't as common with many players these days. There are far more popular options for each of these classes. Not that shotguns aren't used at all, they're common, but not that common. You get me? I'm gonna have to say that the panic attack is consistent. It's there when you need it. It's reliable. I mentioned way earlier the panic attack should be given a name change, and the reason being it's obviously strayed very far from where it once was, and I feel like that the name and the stats are perfect as is. The reliable. You can always count on this thing in more ways than one. Using this, I obviously felt like I did far better than I ever have with the standard shotgun, but of course there's a mention to make that many community servers don't have random spread enabled anyway, so if it's your sort of thing, you could always turn to those. If only poor Scout had something as reliable as this.
Dr. Freeman. Prepare for unforeseen consequences.